Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Jerry Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do,
Just what to do, just what to do.
if what you're feeling is really true,
Is really true, is it really true?
just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Jerry Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jerry Petito Show on Hamilton Radio. Everyone who knows me knows I'm the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass, guys, because 30 years ago, I was a dumbass. But I can now say today, 30 years later, I'm a smartass. Okay? I wouldn't have it any other way. This July, I will be celebrating 30 years of changing my life. I'm no longer an addict. I don't consider myself an addict, guys. Okay, I believe that you can be completely healed if you change things in your life. So having said that, I am also a nutritional health coach. I'm also a recovery coach. If anyone out there needs help, please reach out. You don't have to be alone, especially through everything that's happened here this past year, okay? So I'm always here to help you free of charge. Okay, guys? You don't have to be alone. Having said that, I want to introduce my guest, who's very funny. I have to say, I will say that. I usually make fun of comedians. I will do that as well. But Brian, tell everyone your full name. I do not want to ruin your last name.
It's Brian Chikoki.
Okay. So, your cousin is engaged to my daughter.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a small world. And you also know a lot of comedic friends of mine through Hamilton Radio as well.
Yes, I do.
Tell me a few that you know.
Stephen Keller has that show, Animal House Radio, and that's how I met a bunch of those guys. I was doing a show at Catch a Rising Star in Princeton, and Carla Bellino was there, and the comic tornado guy himself was also there. So I know those guys around the way, and then also I think Joe Conti was doing some stuff on Hamilton Radio for a while too, but. Yeah, so everybody runs in sort of the same circles. So at some point in time, you're doing a show with these guys and rubbing elbows.
So it's really funny. It's a very small world. It's a very small world. So why don't we talk a little bit about how your career started? And you know what else I want you to talk about? Listen, because I love hearing things like this. Like, how old were you when you realized this is what you wanted to do? And did you drive your parents crazy?
Well, yeah, I drove my parents crazy early on. Listen, I always say this. I grew up in Trenton, not far from where you are right now.
Okay, where'd you grow up?
I grew up on Olden Avenue, right on the edge of the city, before the Hamilton border. So I always sort of, as far as like, it wasn't so much I wanted to be a comedian and so forth. It's just that, I didn't know how to fight. So the thing is that, rather than get into scraps with people, I would try to make them laugh. So I was not the biggest guy. I was pretty small growing up. My brother was huge. Like, no one ever bothered him, but I was like the little one. So I was the kid with the big mouth and who knew how to run fast. So I would joke around with people, that sort of thing. So that's how and plus everybody in my family is funny. Like, I almost feel like the imposter in the family. I'm the one that gets paid to do comedy, but half my family is hilarious. So everybody would be joking around.
Oh, okay. So wait, I want to touch base on something that you said, because when I do these interviews, I love getting to the core of things, because sometimes I don't understand what makes people say, I want to do this, or I want to do that, or I want to be this, right? Okay. Yeah. And I've interviewed some fighters. I'm bringing this up to make a point. And to me, I can't imagine ever saying I want to grow up and get beat up and beat people up. But, someone made me understand something. And they said, Jerry, I had a tough childhood. And it's not even about me getting in a ring, being able to beat someone up. I want to know I can take it.
Right.
And I remember thinking, now I get it. And I get it now because I asked certain questions. So you said that you weren't the biggest kid. And were you ever picked on? Were you bullied?
You know, I think a couple times, but you know, that's the irony is, I mean, I joke around about being messed with and so forth, but you know, I think I had maybe 2 instances in my entire childhood where I was bullied by somebody, which is pretty remarkable considering, I mean, you know, this isn't a joke. I was a tiny kid. Like I was a really, really small kid.
Okay.
But I hung around with a lot of bigger kids and so forth. But you know, also growing up with a brother, like I'm about 5 feet 5 inches tall.
I'm a little shorter than you. Yeah.
So I'm kind of like built like Prince, like the late Prince, you know, that kind of thing. And my brother is built like Tony Soprano, like he's a huge guy, you know. Oh, okay. So most of the scraps I got in growing up were with him, you know. So it's like, you know, for me it was a matter of like I never really so much back down from big dudes. I always had a mouth on me kind of thing. So I don't know if it was a matter of like, I'm going to kill this guy if I hit him, or they're just like, I can't believe this kid just mouthed off me. Like, so there was a kind of respect. So it's like, so I don't know how I skated by as much as I did, but I did, you know, but I also like I said, I was always happiest when I was making people laugh. And this was not a matter of like, I saw comedians on TV and said, that's what I want to do in my life. I was just most comfortable in my life when people were laughing around me. That's when I felt at peace, you know, and it's true to this day, you know, like I'm a lot more comfortable in my skin. I'm a lot older. My hair is a lot grayer, you know, kind of thing, but I'm still more comfortable when people are laughing. That's just my icebreaker because this is the other thing. I can't speak for other comedians, but like I joke with people and say like, you're talking to the one comedian who does not like being the center of attention. You know, I don't like commanding the room. I don't like, it's just for me, like, here's the thing, Jerry, and this is in case anybody ever buys a ticket to a show I'm in, I don't do comedy for you. I do comedy for me. So this is who I'm comfortable. You know what I mean? So it's like,
talk about that. I love that.
You know,
talk about that.
You know, so it's like, for me, like if I'm, you know, like the last show I did at Catch a Rising Star, like, so, you know, I could be there on a Saturday night and have the entire audience by the, you know, what's, you know, so then to me, it's a matter of like, okay, now I'm good. Now I'm good kind of thing. And then when the show's over, I want to leave. I don't want to socialize. I just want to go. Like, you're happy, I'm happy. Let's call it even, and we'll call it a night.
For real.
You know? Yeah. I know a lot of comics that love to, like, you know, take all these selfies with people. Like, I'm not that guy. It's not that I don't like people. I'm like shy, I guess. Is, you know, I just, you know.
So
I'm ready to slink out.
And you're a little shy and you became a comedian.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny to me.
But I became a comedian late in life. Like comedy is kind of like tennis. Like if you didn't start by the time you were 12, like you might as well forget about it. You know, I was in my early 30s when I started doing comedy professionally, which is really late in the game. Most guys are starting out at 20 or 21 or something. Some at 19 and that sort of thing. But I started getting work a lot. And there's a great comic named Nick Griffin. I think he holds the record of the most Letterman spots. I know him here, and he's a good friend of mine. So I said to him one time, I ran into him, and I was like, you know, I don't understand this. I've been working for a few years. I started comedy late, but I started working a lot. And he looked at me and he goes, that's because you have something to talk about. He goes, when I started out, all I knew how to talk about was drinking beer and, you know, doing unmentionable things with his radio station. You know, that's all I knew at 19, 20 years old. He goes, at least you have something to talk about, you know. So I had been an actor for years, and then I was a director for years and so forth. Oh. So I had already been familiar with stage. So once I started doing comedy, it just kind of like, it moved quickly. But you still got to get your chops up.
But then let me ask you about that. You were an actor, so that's front and center.
Yeah, but you're playing somebody else. You know, you're playing another character. The difference between comedy stand-up comedy is one of those only things I've had. I don't know. I don't know how many shows. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me that were either like cops or military people or whatever, and they'd come up to me and say, like, "Man, I don't know how you do that, man. This has got to be the scariest thing in the world." I'm like, you just did 2 tours in Iraq and you're telling me they're like, this is nothing. I'm a clown. Like, you know, but they're like, people like get freaked out. The idea it's just you and a microphone. You're not hiding behind a character. You're not hiding behind someone's script. If they don't like you, they don't like you. That's the scarier thing about stand-up. You know, you're not, it's just you and a microphone, you know? So if they don't like you, yeah, they don't like you. That, you know, so it's kind of hard not to take that personally, you know, and I don't care how many comics you talk to, if you've done comedy for a year, or you've done comedy for 30 years, if you have a bad set, I don't care if it's the 1-year guy or the 30-year guy or gal, you know, we don't shake that off easily.
Don't.
No, you know.
Wait, I have a question. All right. I never heard a comedian say that because the average person would think you guys couldn't care less. Right?
Well, I think some people, I think there are some cases where people couldn't care less. But, you know, when you have a killer set, it's like, you know, it's an incredible amount of dopamine. You feel on top of the world.
Okay.
You know, you feel power because it is powerful. It is powerful to walk into a room full of 50, 100, 300, 1,000 strangers and have them by the palm of your hand. And I've had that experience. I've also had the experience of doing 12 straight minutes at a dingy club in New York City to dead silence.
Wait, I got to ask
where
you
the
something.
only thing I can hear is the vent.
See my pants now. Now that's funny. That should be part of your gig because listen, I have a question. So I do know this because I am friends with so many comedians. Okay, you all think you're funny guys. Now listen, I love all my comedic friends, but I have a question. Why do a lot of comedians make fun of everyone else but can't take it back? When people make fun of them, they don't like it. Why? I don't mind being made fun of.
Well, here's the other thing. I will say this, and I love comics, and I love the guys, and I you know. But one of the things I will say about comedians, and I'll put myself in that category in certain instances too. You know, most comedians that I've ever known, and maybe I'm going to lose friends for saying this, but you know, most comedians I've ever known are some of the most miserable SOBs that I've ever met in my life. You know,
yes, I agree with you.
Hypersensitive, unbelievably narcissistic, you know, and I would say sensitive most of all. So it's the sensitivity level.
Why?
I think it's my belief that almost every, well, let me put it this way, almost every brilliant comic that I've ever worked with, and not every comedian's brilliant, and I'm not talking about myself because I don't know where I am. If that's other people to judge, I'm not saying what I am and what level I am. I've had killer sets. I've not killer sets, but you know, most comedians that I've known, you know, have some sort of, have demons. Just have like whatever that demon is, and
I mean,
whatever that yeah, I mean, I never had the good privilege of, meeting Robin Williams, but yeah, it was I understand to be a troubled guy, and I've known a lot of comedians that, and there's a couple I can think of off the top of my head that'll remain nameless, who I think are just utterly hilarious.
Yeah.
But I've worked with some guys, some really heavy hitter guys. We were driving together in the car, going to the gig and so forth. And I mean to tell you, the most painful part of the entire weekend for me was the drive. Just spending one-on-one time with the person, because I don't do well with silence, which is probably why I haven't stopped talking this entire time since the show started.
Yeah, I don't do well with silence either. I'm a talk show.
There's a couple guys that I've worked with that I have so much respect. Unbelievably brilliant comedians, hilarious, but are just so painfully awkward to be around in a conversation, just one-on-one. And they're like almost socially awkward is to put it lightly. But get them on stage. I mean, it's magic.
Incredible. So Sebastian, let's talk about Sebastian a minute. So you got to work with him years ago, because I love him.
I worked with Sebastian a couple times years ago, like before he really blew up. Because Sebastian Maniscalco was, as we were saying before the show started, is one of my favorites out there, and he's hilarious to me. I can watch him nonstop. He's the kind of guy that I think is deserving of every drop of success that he's had. And unlike what I was just describing, one of the nicest guys that I've ever worked with, like down to earth guy. He's a blue collar Italian guy from Chicago, and I'm sorry if you grew up in blue collar Chicago or in Trenton, New Jersey.
Yes.
Sebastian speaks to you, and I'm not even Italian, and I'm like, that's my daddy. That's me.
But you're from Trenton, baby. But you're from Trenton.
I mean,
everybody's Italian from Trenton. Are you kidding me?
I'm an honorary Sicilian. It's like,
there you go.
So. But yeah, no, he's just a great guy. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but he's just funny and just a good guy. So I'm always happy when I see him or I see the next thing he's doing. So let me ask you a couple more questions, because I just love, again, I really love getting to like the nitty gritty of what make people do the things they do and how they've become who they've become. Sure. So when you were young, did you walk around the house a lot cracking stupid jokes, and were you told to shut up? I cracked. That's all I did was crack jokes. And again, like I was telling you before, like, I come from a whole family of, I'll say chops busters, and jokers. I mean,
yeah. Us too.
My mother is from a predominantly Irish family in Brooklyn, and my father's, Irish, Polish, from Trenton, and it was like every family gathering. It's like my mom's, not to insult my dad's side, but my mom's side of the family were like these, intellectual Irish quick wit, kind of cutting humor kind of thing. And then my father's side, it was, it was just, it would be like this round, it would be like a Friars Club roast among all the brothers. There were 5 brothers there, including Diane's father, my cousin. And that's all they did was bust each other's chest. So it was just nonstop, it was like a pit bull fight of joking with each other in the household. The only difference is that years later, I'm getting paid to do it. And,
that's hysterical. That's hysterical, because we were all very sarcastic idiots. I mean,
totally
that way. And I love being made fun of. I have no problem with that. You can make fun of me.
And by the way, that, not to blow smoke, but that's predominantly why I love doing any Jersey clubs that I do. I know some people that are, like, I used to do Stress Factory quite a bit in New Brunswick, and I'd hear some comedians who never worked. It's like, oh, I heard that's a tough room. I'm like, now they're here from Jersey, man. This is just,
it's different.
Just rip that place up, man. So
I grew up in Long Island City, New York, and we moved to New Jersey when I was only 12. And I mean, we love comedy, and that's all there is to it, and especially now, Brian, with everything that's going on this past year has been really tough for everybody. Has it been tough for you?
Well, it's been tough in terms of, like, I haven't done a live show in a year. I was one of those few comics that opted out of doing the Zoom shows and so forth, just simply because, there's just something fundamentally missing in the Zoom show. Like, I'm getting something out of this and us joking around and so forth, but there's still a distance. It would be different if you and I were sitting in the same studio. It's a different energy. Like, I applaud the comics that can do that. Maybe I'm just too sensitive to not hear and feel the feedback. Like, I can see, I've done things where it's like I'm on certain business meetings and I can't help myself and I start joking with people and I can see them laughing. That does something for me, but I'm not feeling the bounce back. I'm not feeling the energy.
Get it.
So I'm just like, I'll wait. So that's that. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the live shows and stuff. But I just I love that energy. And I'll tell you something, my favorite thing though, I love doing material and so forth, but like my favorite thing, and my wife loves this, like my wife has been to a lot of my shows and stuff. And, she loves, like one of my favorite things is when I mess with the crowd. People call it crowd work or whatever, but I love to just stop doing material and I'll just start talking to somebody and I have no idea where we're going. I have no idea what I'm going to get back from this person, but like the instinct and the spitfire energy you get from something somebody did or said, and I'll pick up an extra 15 minutes in the show just from doing that. And those are like to me, it's like that zone of genius, you know, on stage, because it's one of, like, I'm not a great, like, set up punchline joke writer for late night. That's not what I do. I do stories. I'm physical on stage, and my thing is working off the crowd. I'm very good off the cuff working with people. And my wife loves that, because then it's like, this is a unique signature show for that audience, because they were in on the entire thing. Yeah. Because the same thing's not going to happen in the 9:30 show, because it's a different audience. So it's a special delivery package for that audience. And my wife pointed that out to me. I never thought of it that way. And I'm like, oh, that makes me actually feel good, you know, because they were given something. It's like an autographed show for them, you know, because they were in on it, you know.
So then let me ask you this. So do you ever sit down and write jokes or no? I
do. What I do is I write kind of concepts for a joke. And then I like to riff on those concepts. You know, like I said, I'm not like there's quite a few guys that I know that are brilliant, just they're wordsmiths and joke like Seinfeld was. And there's a great comedian I was coming up with named Gary Veeder, who actually went very far in America's Got Talent some years ago. He was a brilliant joke writer, and he had a deadpan delivery, really smart comic. I loved his stuff, but it's like, I loved listening to him because that's also not what I do. What he does is not what I do. And I really appreciated his work because it was so different than what I did. I would get on stage and I have a couple concepts that I can think about, but I also like, you know, I was an activist. I get into it. I start like, I get physical on stage. I mean, kind of like Sebastian. I think that's why I like Sebastian so much, because he's physical on stage too. And I'm a lot like that as well. You know, as a matter of fact, one of my greatest compliments, I had a new bit I was doing one time, and I was happened to catch a Sebastian's bit. I'm like, he just did that, and I had to take it off my list. I'm like, well, at least we're thinking alike, you know, kind of thing.
I didn't do it. Take it off your list because listen, everyone will do it their own way.
No, I know, but that's just what I do.
I know, but that's so cool. You know, Seinfeld. All right, I got to meet Seinfeld many years ago. Well, not really many, maybe like 6 years ago in Vegas. I saw him at a show and all that. And the reason I own the whole entire series, okay, everything. Mm-hmm. The reason why that was my favorite was because, and Friends, of course, I loved Friends. Forget it, that was like stupid, silly fun. But Seinfeld to me was just brilliant comedy because everything they did, we think about. Right. Listen, I say things, people look at me like, I can't believe somebody got me. Oh, I have it over here for my birthday. Somebody just gave it to me. And it said, people think about these things, but I just say it because I do. And when I was younger, when Seinfeld came out, I was like, oh my gosh, he's so real. He's so real. And Elaine, she's so real. And, you know, this is real life. And, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was probably the secret to his success because he had, Seinfeld had that kind of. I don't mean this in the wrong way. I mean, like there was like a sort of vanilla to his humor that was palatable to a much larger audience. That's always been my take on Seinfeld, which is why he was also so commercially successful.
Yes,
I agree. And he just took that Monday, but also the genius behind that show was Larry David, who is an extremely quirky guy.
Yeah, forget it.
A good friend of mine named Bill Sheff, he was the head writer of Letterman for about 18 years and so forth. And Bill and Larry have been friends for 35 years and so forth. And it's funny because it's like I haven't met Larry, but he would say, that's Larry. Like you see that guy on Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's Larry.
That's Larry.
Yes. Really, he's not even acting. Like he's just that wired up. But very funny stuff.
So in your mind when you were growing up. You said, did you say, I want to be a comedian, or did it just happen? Did it just fall into your lap?
No, it was, it's funny because my aunt, who has lived in Manhattan for 40 some years and so forth, she brought me to my first stand-up show at Caroline's when it was down on, Caroline's used to be at the South Street Seaport before it moved up to Broadway.
Okay.
And I remember going to the show, and I was like 12 years old at the time. they warned her. They're like, this is an adult. She's like, yeah, he's fine, kind of thing. And we went to the show and stuff, and and I loved it. And I always, comedy was always one of those things where, again, I never like saw that, or I saw Eddie Murphy's Delirious, or I saw the Dangerfield Young Comedian special and said that's what I want to do. It was really more something like, I would say, I know I can do that. Like, I know I can do that. So, but I wanted to be an actor, and actually before I wanted to make movies. Like, so my first thing was, I became an actor, and then I got into directing, which was really more my forte, and I wanted to be the creator of the things. And then I took a hiatus from directing a number of years ago, and I said, okay, let me get this comedy thing off of my list. Let's give it a shot. And the next thing you know, I was working. So when the train's moving, I guess you keep riding it. But so the next thing you know, several years later, here I am, I'm still doing comedy. so
the acting, talk about that for a minute. So what did you perform in plays? What did you do?
Yeah, I performed in plays and so forth, but that was one of the things that, like, let me tell you this, like, I always promised myself, like, if the real money hits at some point, I'd like to go back to Trenton and create some sort of arts program for teens and things like that, because there was nothing when I grew up. Like, there was the idea of working in the arts in my neighborhood was not even a conversation. It was, I wouldn't say it was encouraged, or it was just kind of like, it was foreign. It was like you're speaking a foreign language kind of thing. It's like, get a job,
What years was that?
This was, I'm, in the early 80s. I mean, I was born in 70s. So I was born in the 70s and grew up there in the 80s and so forth. And I left in the early 90s. But my particular neighborhood, and it was a blue collar neighborhood. It was just, people were laborers. They were, you worked in a factory, or you were, this guy's father was a plumber. This guy's father was a carpenter, and that kind of stuff. But
did you ever hear about Jerry's Final Touch?
Oh, I remember that place.
Because that was mine.
Oh, really? Where was that again?
You make fun of it now, right? Make fun of it.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to make fun of it.
It was in the Lawrenceville area. Yes.
I remember that name, Jerry's Final Touch. I think my grandmother lived down there. My grandmother lived with us for a while. My mother used to take her to get her hair done.
What was your grandmother's last name?
Spilly.
So what was her first name?
Patricia.
That's crazy, because it could be. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. What a small world. Crazy. But so I didn't realize that about, I guess, I never really thought, like you were saying, like everyone was a blue collar worker. You're right. I mean, I guess we didn't talk about all that. Like it was out of our zone, right?
And also, in fairness, a lot of that was also my perception, because it's like when you're saying to somebody like, hey, I want to go to the mall, and they answer you with like, I need you to go to the bakery. It's like, are we talking about the same subject? Kind of like that's my perception growing up there. It's like, so I just kind of did everything on my own because I'm stubborn and,
Me too.
So when I left Trenton, I just started doing, I just performed and did things wherever I could find them. I knew nobody. So everything I didn't have connections. I didn't have any of that stuff.
Wow.
So then I just dove in, except when I started comedy. I had a little help. A buddy of mine who grew up in Ewing, named Eric Lydon, really great guy. I've known him since I was 16. He had been doing comedy for about 12 years, and he was the one. He kept hounding me. He said, "You got to start doing it. You're funny as hell. You got to start doing this."
That's great.
So I finally did, and then he's a good guy. He was a big help early on, a huge help.
So listen, do you have any little skits for us?
Skits. Like what kind of skits?
Make us laugh.
I've been making you laugh this whole interview.
You haven't. You haven't.
Should talk about my marriage. Let's do it. That's the funnier thing, because my wife, my wife is. You're gonna probably laugh at this. I'm about 5'5". My wife is 5'11". If you can believe that.
Okay.
Yeah. She's a tall woman. She's a tall woman. Yeah. We met on an internet dating site called I can't believe it got to this.com. So that's So that's that. But it's funny because I always dated taller women when I was growing up. I don't know why that was, but you know, tall women seem to dig me, and I don't, you know, and I always seem to take. I'm sure there's something Freudian in there, but I'm not sure. But but it's weird because it's weird dating too, because it's like I was not like a ladies' man in high school or college because I was smaller, because like women always like taller guys and that sort of thing. But it's like when you're a small guy, women say weird stuff to you. You know what I mean? Like I had a woman, like this is a true story. A woman came up to me after a show one time and she's like, "Oh my God, you were so cute. I want to put you in my pocket and feed you M&Ms." And I was like, that is like not like I know you meant that as a compliment, but that's like more of like a Silence of the Lambs kind of thing you might say to somebody. I was like, that's not, you know,
a little puppy. You know?
I'm like, I know you're. I'm like, I appreciate you're interested, but kidnapping me and feeding me nothing but sugar is not exactly the way to turn me on. But
what's your favorite topic to make fun of?
God, well, I make fun of a lot of topics. I mean, I talk about relationships a lot, mainly because, you know, I'm married now and so forth, especially now during the pandemic, you know, and it's like, for instance, like I tried to impress you because I wanted you to have the angle of the hanging plants behind me,
Aww.
you know, because this is my wife did this, like,
that's
you know,
nice.
So, you know, if a man has plants in his apartment, especially living plants, you know, he's either married to a woman or he has no interest in women. That's the only reason why you would see live.
Yeah. That's so funny. I never thought of it. Okay.
Yeah. No, this is not something that I would do. But yeah, so we just moved recently. Like, and my wife, it's the weirdest thing is, you know, when you start living with somebody. Like I lived alone for years, you know, and I never really knew how much stuff I did wrong until my wife moved into my house. So she moved into my apartment in like 2011 in Manhattan. It was like, and then we went through that like awkward period of where she was trying to get settled in and I was trying to find my stuff, you know. So like I didn't think she got rid of anything, but I definitely was checking Craigslist to see if, you know, I recognized anything. But because when you, like, a woman moves in with you, like, I don't know if you've ever done this in your relationships, but it's like there's an unspoken rule with women and men when they live together that, like, she will set the rules as to what will still live in this house and what won't live in this house. Like, my favorite thing is, like, every once in a while I would come home and there would be an object sitting on one of my possessions sitting on my desk that used to live somewhere else in the apartment. Like, there's no note on it, there's no nothing, but that's just a symbol to me that this no longer belongs where it was sitting prior. You know, it's like this unspoken eviction notice for some object in the house, you know. And now we just moved about a month ago. I think I just told you about that.
Did any of your stuff come with you?
Well, we threw a lot of stuff out, but now it's a matter of, like, I need a tour guide because I don't know where anything is. So she has to now teach me about where things are and where they belong. Like, I can't find my shoes, I can't find pants, because she's organized everything, you know? So it's like this great, I should start a reality show, like a great scavenger hunt, so I can just find something to wear today, you know? And no heads up. It's just kind of like surprise. It's like a Dear John letter for your possessions every time you come home, you know? So, but I like being married, though.
Do you have children?
No, we have a French bulldog, though.
I see.
Yeah.
Does he enjoy your comedy?
Yeah. He just snores. That's he's actually the comedian. That's the one thing you don't want on stage is you don't ever want to have an animal on stage with you because they steal the show. Like, I have a most adorable French bulldog that just you know, I'm just the guy that walks them. You know, I remember, like, I used to, like, be very popular in the neighborhood, and then nobody would talk to me, like, "Hey, Miles, how you doing?" You know, kind of thing. So I'm just like the schmuck that walks them. So.
Oh my gosh, that's great. You know, they're chick magnets too. You know, women will talk to someone with a dog. Yeah,
I wish I knew that when I was single, because my wife and I got the dog together. But so I'd be doing really good if you were out of the picture. But
so let me ask you this: what's your least favorite comedic topics?
Politics.
Do you have any? Politics, your least favorite?
Yeah. I don't. It's funny because every once in a while I do a gig and and once in a while, especially private gigs, like there'll always be somebody who comes up to you like they're the priest of the group and say, please don't talk about X, Y, and Z, you know, and sometimes it'll be politics. I'm like, I don't talk about politics. I don't, I think we're talking about politics too much. And I think a comedy club should be a place where you get a break from that.
I do too.
I don't, you know, unless you're like a Dennis Miller, who was like the one, probably the most well-known political comic out there. But I just don't think people want to talk about it. You know, I just don't think
they want a break. They want a break. They want to laugh. They want to enjoy the night.
I think I told you about this the first time you and I spoke. Like and this is the only thing I'll talk about politics like, but I was at the Borgata Comedy Club for a week when the 2016 election happened. Okay. So that happened on Tuesday. Trump won. And then Wednesday, because it was announced late Tuesday, I can't remember, it was late Tuesday night or something. It was confirmed Wednesday morning. Anyway, so Wednesday night, first show after the election, right? I'm the first comic out. So I step out on stage. When I tell you there was a weird air in the room, it's an understatement. There was just, I don't know, I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was a thickness in the air. And people got out there, there was clapping or whatever, but you know, but you just feel the thickness. And I said to them, I just want everyone to know I don't talk about politics. And I got the biggest ovation,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
And I hadn't even told a joke yet. And then what that did was everybody's shoulders went down, and then we had a show.
Yes.
You know, and I don't know who voted for what. I don't care, you know. And, you know, New Jersey's such a mixed bag politically anyway, as far as I'm concerned. It was just like, let's just have a good time. And that's what we did, you know.
So I have a serious question for you. All right. So as I'm going to say a regular person that goes to see comedy shows, okay? I mean, I consider myself this stupid, sarcastic, comedic Italian, but we're all us skinnies think that, you know? But I'm not a comedian.
You could just say you're Italian, and then we know.
There you go. There you go. I'm not a comedian, but when I go to these shows, more times than not, I want to walk out on some of them. Like Sebastian, the reason why I love him so much is because he's clean, number one. And I'm not a prude, but he's clean. And all his jokes are about life as well and funny. Nothing to offend anyone. He talks about his own family and all that good stuff. I'm going to ask you a serious question here, and I'm hoping you can make me understand it. Why do some comedians think it's funny to get up there and talk about people who've died in the public, people, dead babies? I've heard jokes about dead babies. Even Elvis, how Elvis died on the toilet. Not funny to me. I'm sorry.
Right.
You know, why do they think people in the audience want to hear this?
You know, my take on that, and the kind of comedian you're describing is in the minority of who I end up working with or even run into.
Good.
My feeling is the majority of the time, what you're describing are younger, inexperienced comedians.
I'm going to disagree with you for a minute with that. And you might be right overall, but there were 3 comedians. One was, believe it or not, I'm not going to say male or female, in the 80s. One was late 60s and one was in the 50s that I actually went up to after the show and said, not cool. So they were older.
Right. Well, that might also explain something too, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But I think in speaking about the younger comedians and so forth, I gotta understand something about comics, and I do this too. You're always pushing the envelope, and you're always trying to, especially when comedians are talking, there's always like, you're trying to one up, you know, it's like pinballing off of each other about an idea or a riff or a thought, you know, and that sort of thing. I always joke about when a group of comedians, it's like everybody's talking and no one's listening kind of thing. You know, everybody's got like throwing out their bit. But I think that a lot of the times it's like that desire to be cutting edge or to shock or to get a rise out of people. And so if I think that's largely the younger, inexperienced comedians. But I think sometimes even the most experienced, most well-known comedians will find them, especially in this day and age, somebody will find themselves in like Twitter outrage jail or something because of a joke. Or what's her name? Kathy Griffin, when she had the beheaded Trump thing kind of thing. And, you know, which she caught, you know, holy hell from, you know, conservative media and so forth. I just didn't think it was funny. You know, I wasn't offended by it. I just didn't. It was my whole thing was like, well, where was the joke? You know, for me,
exactly.
But I think that's what it is. I think people, it's just a matter of like, sometimes it's a matter of wanting to shock and push the envelope, and sometimes it's a matter of like you're on the third take or build on an idea, and it's that one last one you've stepped over the edge, and then you realize, okay, I can't tell that joke again. You know, kind of thing. And I've done that personally with people. Like I'm riffing with people, and I am not I can be edgy. I can be, you know, I can mess with the midnight crowd. I can do all that stuff, but I'm not there to attack you. That's not what I've had only one or two incidents where I've actually done that because it was somebody who was drunk and unruly. And for some reason, the management was not getting this person under control, you know, but you know, but I also think some people have, you know, a dark desire to hurt people, you know.
Hold that thought. You're right.
I think that's the rarity. I think that's the small minority of people.
Yes.
I don't think that's
and you're probably right. You're probably right.
So, you know, I've stood in the back of, especially with younger comedians, you know, like when I was first starting, and it was around with other young, well, they were younger, a lot younger than me, but young, I mean, in experience. And sometimes it was also with them with age. It was like, who could come up with the worst like rape joke or dead baby joke,
right?
And I would just sit in the back of the room, like, you know, not only is that not funny, like you're an idiot, you know, like it was like a basement beer drinking party.
Yes.
Where it was a bunch of guys, you know, slapping each other or something. And I'm like, this is not, it's like, but where is the punchline? If you're going to talk about a topic, this is my rule of thumb. If you're going to talk about a topic that is a fine line topic,
cutting edge,
you better know what you're doing. And some people do, and some people don't, you know. I tell you this, I have a joke that I've used for years that I oftentimes close with, because I grew up Catholic, you know. And
I love those jokes.
You know, and I went to 13 years of Catholic schooling and all that kind of stuff. And I have a joke that I would close with, and this is to my point, because you're talking to a straight white male comedian. So I have the thinnest line to walk ever, every time I walk out on stage, you know, because I don't have a lot of leeway.
Come on, I love Catholic jokes because I couldn't take it. Tell us.
The point is that, like, I talk about having grown up Catholic and how I found it scary and I found it frightening growing up, you know. And I'd say, you know, in my school we didn't have the King James Bible, we had the Stephen King Bible, you know. And I don't know what. So I'd say I don't know why it is. I said, I don't know why it is that when white people talk about Jesus, it's very scary. But when black people talk about Jesus, I want to dance. And I don't know why it is that black Jesus is in such a good mood. Mine's so pissed off, right? So I would talk about the comparison between black churches and predominantly white churches. But the point I'm getting at, every time I'd be in an audience, in front of an audience, whether it's an all-white audience or a mixed audience or a predominantly black audience, every time this face says, I don't understand when white people, and as soon as I start to talk, you could hear the heat of like weight of silence come over the room. Like, where is he going with this? And I had barely started the joke, you know? So it's like, so it's a fine line you talk about. But I will say though, I've done this entire bit comparing black churches to Catholic white churches, blah, blah, blah. I was in a this dingy club in Midtown one time years ago, and I did that bit, got a huge laugh and so forth, and I went to the men's room to go to the bathroom. I turned around. There were 3 guys standing in front, like practically towering over me, kind of startled me, like, and 3 African-American guys. And I was like, hey guys, how's it going? And he's like, I thought they were about to give me crap about because I recognized one of them from the audience. And the guy said to me, he goes, hey man, let me tell you something. And he starts like he's trying not to laugh. He goes, you man, you said something that we all have been thinking for years, and then you said it, and they were like high-fiving me and all this kind of, so I realized like, oh, wait a minute. Like, okay, so here was like, it was like a moment where there was this appreciation, but it's like, whenever I would tell that joke, it was like the African Americans in the audience almost had to give permission to the white people in the audience to actually laugh at that joke. It's like, this is how tight we've gotten in comedy, where you'd see people like looking over at the few, African Americans in the audience, like, hey, can we laugh at this? And then I'll talk about that, So it's just, I think comedy's been crazy right now. I think it's just really like, yeah, I do think there's a lot of offensive things in the world, but I also think, like I'm fairly liberal in certain thoughts that I have, but I also think we've gotten a little crazy with cancel culture and political correctness and sensitivity and so forth. I'm just like, I'm waiting for the balance.
So Don Rickles, what do you think of him? Okay, Don Rickles. Yeah.
I have been addicted to his roast lately.
So. All right, so I have to tell you, he was on stage. I saw this. I didn't see it live. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you Google it, you can check it out. And you may have already seen it. So he did a show, and in the front row was a husband and wife. Mm-hmm. An older, not old, probably 50s, 60s, whatever. Anyway, she didn't like him. Her husband made her go. So she was heckling him the whole entire time. He says to her, listen, to the husband, he says, if she was my wife, I'd give her poison to drink. She stood up and she said, and if you were my husband, I'd drink it. He stops the show. He says, get up here. He says, no one in my entire career has ever made me speechless. I got to get you on this. Now they were probably the best of friends after that. He brought her up on the stage and he said, you're better than me. You're funnier than me. Are you kidding me? Awesome. He said, it was really great.
It's a great example. Especially if you watch clips of Don Rickles in later years, like when he would do the AFI, the American Film Institute honoree things or stuff like that, or even when they did, there's an evening dedicated to him that was shot at the Apollo. It was a whole celebration of Don Rickles and so forth. Don Rickles, who was known to be like the original insult comic, did not have, in my estimation, a vindictive bone in his body.
No, I agree.
He busted chops, he insulted, but at the end of the day, the guy had this huge heart that he'd be like, I'll insult you, and then I want to hug you and pray for you tonight, and wish you health and, and all these things. But like, he just, I think that's why I think now that you're on the subject of Don Rickles, I think that's why I can't stand this just landmine level of sensitivity that we're in right now, because I think, and especially with cancel culture, I'm just like, okay, you want to overcome the issues you're talking about. What you're doing is creating the polar opposite effect. You're actually making it worse by doing that. If you allow people to joke about it, if you allow people to sort of, because making a joke is, I'm not making, when I joke, if you were in my audience and I'm poking fun at you, I am not attacking you. What I am doing is I am kind of celebrating the absurdity of everything, And a lot of my jokes, like Sebastian too, is like, I'm the subject of almost 80% of my jokes on stage. I'm the butt of the joke.
And we love that. See, that's what the average person loves. They want to hear you guys make fun of yourselves and your families and, and then poke fun at certain people in the audience. We love that.
Right. Well, because like, for instance, like I talked about my marriage earlier. Like I had this one liner I talk about I talk about, being in a relationship with my wife and like how do. She would come up to
Yep,
me. She's like, "You
Toronto.
want some?" She goes, "You want some coffee?" That's how she would talk to me. Like I was like, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, what's that about?" You know. So we would like.
What is that
we
about?
would
I
poke-
love it.
We
I
would poke
absolutely
fun
love
at each
it.
other. But, yeah. That's how she would ask me if I want to come. You want some coffee?
I have friends in Toronto, and I have someone. She is such a beautiful, beautiful, amazing singer, and I'm interviewing her again. And she calls me yesterday, and I love when she says this to me, "A," and I'm like, "Say it again," and she's like, "What? You know, A." I love it.
Well, it's like the Irish. I love when people who are from Ireland, like when they're in between sentences, like M. So
Funny. So Brian, we're coming to the part of the show where I want to read a poem out of my book.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm choosing this one is because, again, I like to bring some sort of hope to people out there that are struggling. You know, this past year has really, a lot of people attempted to take their lives, friends of mine. Some people have succeeded. People are struggling with depression and all that. And I just want to read a poem out of here to make everyone feel like that they're not alone and they can talk to someone. So guys, this poem is called Put Down the Gun. Okay? And the gun is anything that you're using to possibly hurt yourself. Please put it down. Okay? It could be drugs. It could be whatever it is. Put down the gun. I had to have this purple gun just in case my life was done. I kept it safe locked in my room because I was filled with gloom and doom. Yes, there were times that I just knew if I loaded it up what I could do, but I kept my gentle voice, put down that gun, you have that choice. Life may seem hard at the end of the day. That's when you need to really pray. Dear Father, I beg you to show me the truth. How can life be so bad when I'm only a youth? Get rid of that gun and go take a shower. Ask someone for help. You do have that power. Guys, I just want everybody out there who's feeling hopeless or helpless right now to know that you're not alone, okay? And there's someone out there that can help you. So please reach out. I don't care who it is. Reach out to someone. If you're feeling like, you know, I don't even want to say it, but if you're feeling hopeless, please reach out to someone. There's help out there, okay? I just had to say that. So having said that, Brian, what a great, great, great interview. You've enlightened me with things I've been wanting to ask some of my comedic friends for a long time, because when they're your friends and you ask them, they just joke about your question. Do you know what I mean? So you don't get the answers. What you did for me today was amazing. This was such a great interview. And I just want to thank you.
Thanks for having me. You know?
It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. We still have a few more minutes. So if you want to, I'm going to give you an opportunity right now. You can say anything you want to everyone out there listening. Again, you have a lot of people listening. So whatever you want to say to them, and then if you want to make us giggle a little bit, the floor is yours.
Well, I guess the only thing if you don't mind, I'd just like to say, because you asked me a lot about, you know, inspirations and how you did things. The people that I like to speak to the most is, and I'm not going to make a joke about it, just people I like to speak to the most are the people that, you know, have a passion to do something and they find themselves, they're not doing it, you know, and for whatever reason that is, you know, and that's like a big thing with me, because like I said, I've struggled with that for years, into a lot of ambivalence and things like that. But, you know, I would just say, like, you know, no matter what you do in your life, or what I try to do is I just try to be truthful. I just try to tell the truth in everything that I do, you know, and I'm so on top of that. Like, I hate BS.
Me too.
I hate, I won't say the word, I hate BS.
Me too.
I don't like my own BS, and I don't like anyone else's BS, you know.
Me too.
So if somebody's, so when I hear people talking from, you know, from the gut, that's what I try to do with people. I try to do that on stage. I try to do that when I'm directing something. I try to do that in my writing. I try to do that when I'm teaching. I try to do that in this conversation, you know. Yes, I like to joke around and so much too, but I think the commodity that we're missing in this world right now, especially in the political landscape that we're in, is, I think, the greatest commodity moving forward is going to be honesty. is going to be truth, because I don't think we have a lot out there, you know. And I think when people tell the truth, just tell their own truth, whatever that is, you know, I think people hear that, you know, and I think so. If you know whatever it is your truth is, I just say share it. And then there's also ways to share it. I'm not saying, you know, you use your truth to smack somebody's upside the head, you know, kind of thing. But, you know, let's just, you know, be true to your word, you know. And I think we could use a little more of that in this world. You know what I mean? So that's what I'd like to say.
That was beautifully said. You know, I want to read another poem then, and this is why.
Sure.
Because what you just said was incredible, and I always end with this poem, and I didn't on purpose, but you just said some things, and I think it's needed. I'm going to read another poem, you guys, because I agree with you. I am the last person. I can't deal with nonsense. I cannot, and sometimes to a fault. I can't deal with BS, and don't you dare lie, because here's the thing. I won't lie to you, but if I don't want to answer your question, I'll tell you I'd rather not answer it.
Sure.
And I tell people all the time, I'll respect that. You don't have to answer every question, but don't lie to me. Say, Jerry, you know what? I really don't want to answer that. Yeah. That's the person you should be. And, you know, I think my father, he's gone now. He was the most amazing man that walked this earth next to Jesus to me. And I'm going to tell you something. He always said, a man's handshake is a handshake. Make it stand for something. Your word is your word. Your yes is your yes, and your no is your no. And I live my life like that. And people need to understand that they have worth, because too many people today feel like they're worthless.
Right.
I think people need to feel that they have worth. So I'm going to read.
Because if I may, real quick, that's because we, you know, listen, I like to joke around too, but this is just a hot topic for me, because we don't live in a world where we lift each other up.
Right.
You know, we don't live in a world where we lift each other up. You know, there's no overarching sense of community anymore. It exists still. It does exist, but I feel like it's in pockets now, you know. And I think that, you know, to me, it's like if the political landscape is the thing that's dominating what we're talking about, there's a problem, you know. So because we're the people, not anyway. So good.
No, but you're right. Listen, you're right. You and I, we can have that conversation all day. Yes.
This guy was funny until he got serious.
Here we go. Change your choice. We all have choices, guys. We have that power. I had a life-changing moment that I knew had to be, and the only way to change things was to first start with me. So I looked in the mirror and woke up one day and thought to myself I needed to pray. So I asked God to change me, to help me stay strong, to clean up my mess, to right what's been wrong. I cleaned up my diet. I cleaned up my room. I cleaned up all habits with this old dirty broom. I kept going forward and never looked back. I refused to derail, stayed on the right track. I realized my worth and all that did matter through my selfish behavior, the lives I had shattered. Finally decided at 30 years old to stop abusing my body, my mind, heart, and soul. My life-changing choice that I had once made, now 30 years now, my debt has been paid. So you read all my thoughts on how to stay clean. It's all or nothing, my friend. There's no in between. To live or to die is a choice you must make. Your life is not worthless, and you're not a mistake. One day at a time is a slogan you've heard. It works if you work it while applying his word. For you to get healthy, for your mind not to fail, escaping reality will keep you in jail. With addictive behavior, sex, drugs, food, or money, substituting addictions now isn't that funny. I'm not an addict. This too shall pass. I'm not an addict. I'm just an ass. And the reason why I love reading that poem is because I want people out there to know this. No matter what it is you're going through, not children, I'm not talking about children, I'm talking about adults. No matter what it is you're going through, you can make changes. You have choices to make here to better your life. Okay? Pick up the phone, call someone. And today, 30 years ago, guys, we didn't have Google and all this craziness. I had to do it on my own. Okay? Today, you can find help anywhere. So just Google whatever your situation is and something will pop up, I promise you. Right? Right? Don't you think, Brian?
Yep. Yep.
Good. So, okay, guys, we're coming
Okay, I think we lost you. Can't hear you. Can you hear me, Jerry? I can't hear you. Oh, okay. I'm gonna. This is like the mime show suddenly. Well, Jerry, thanks for having me. I want a big shout out and thank you to Jerry Petito for having me on the show. Okay. My name is Brian Jacoby. Oh, there we go. I think now I can hear you. Can you hear? So we'll close the show on that. Thanks, everybody. This is comedian director Brian Jacoby signing out for Jerry Petito, the great host of the Jerry Petito Show. And go buy her book. I'm not an addict. I'm just an ass. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Jerry Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Jerry Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.